Hey guys, Distler Magic here, and it's time for yet another fun deck. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a while now, this deck might just look a little bit familiar. I figured, hey, I updated my landfall deck, might as well update Twilight. I would say that this time around the deck has a more focused objective, but it's also more flexible. I wouldn't say that it's overall better, because I didn't go with any rally abilities at all, but it is really funny. The only problem with this deck is it's just barely playable by a human. Now what do I mean by that? Well, you'll see by the end of this video. First up, we've got Night Market Lookout. That's a human rogue. Those are always my favorite. Whenever Night Market Lookout becomes tapped, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Pretty simple 1/1 for 1, and that's actually a really decent ability. I mean, it's kind of like Lifelink, except you get it even if you ram yourself into a first striker. Next up, we've got Bloodbond Vampire. It does cost 4 and it's a 3/3 and it doesn't fly, but whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on Bloodbond Vampire. You don't have to pay any mana, nothing. Just straight up put a counter on it. Next up, we've got Cliffhaven Vampire, the big ol' yo-yo card. He does cost 4 and he's a 2/4 in the air, but he can just sit there and block. He's pretty nice. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. That is straight up life gain damage amplification right there. And of course, next up is his best friend forever, Drana's Emissary. Yes, it's a 2/2 for 3, but I mean, all these cards are worth it even though they kind of suck according to their mana cost. It is flying though. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Next up, we've got Pious Evangel. Now, this one is powerful. It is a 2/2 for 3, but it's a flip card. Whenever Pious Evangel or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Simple, simple. Then if you pay 2, tap it, sacrifice another permanent, any permanent at all, transform Pious Evangel. On the other side, he's Wayward Disciple, and he states that whenever another creature you control dies, target opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. So he basically becomes Zulaport. Hey, speaking of Zulaport, Zulaport is in this deck. Yeah, it's a 1/1 for 2. It's a bit of a theme. They had to cripple the deck somehow. I mean, it's hard to say that Wizards didn't know about this. He's a human rogue ally, which means he's totally freaking awesome. Rogues forever, rogue deck build, woo! Whenever Zulaport Cutthroat or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Next up, kind of the odd man out in this deck, but I just put it in because it's powerful. Ayli, Eternal Pilgrim. It's a 2/3 with Death Touch for 2, and that alone is insane. I mean, this, you throw her out, and she's probably going to stop them from attacking for a couple turns, and that's important because you want to sit there and drain their life away. So if you pay 1 colorless at any time, whether she's tapped or not, sacrifice another creature, and then you gain life equal to sacrifice creature's toughness. So if they're about to kill something with a kill spell, you just sacrifice it instead, their spell fails to have a target, and you gain some life. Now the other thing is, if you're at 30 life or higher, you can use her second ability, which is pay 3, sacrifice another creature, and then exile target non-land permanent. That's pretty impressive because it's any permanent. I mean, well, except for land. So if there's like an artifact causing you trouble or an enchantment, you can just nuke it just like that. And the creatures are pretty important in this deck. But it's not the end of the world if like a Night Market Lookout has to go. You know, it's only a 1/1 for 1. If you cast this over and over and over, I mean, you could, start losing some of your stuff, but it acts like Annihilator. Eventually, they're just not going to have anything left. Now, next up, we've got a card that I wish was legal back in the whole ally rally time. Authority the Consuls. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped, and then whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you gain 1 life. The 1 cost is amazing. The life gain trigger, it's amazing. It keeps you alive. Yes, it doesn't actually harm them unless you have Cliffhaven out, but I mean, it's just so powerful. It's at least a 1-turn stall, at least. Next up, we got Serene Stewart, or as everybody calls her, Kristen Stewart, because, I mean, come on, look at her, it looks just like her. And this finally is a 2/2 for 2. I mean, finally something reasonable. Whenever you gain life, you may pay 1 white. Now, I wish it was colorless, but, can't have it all. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target creatures, so it doesn't just have to be her herself. That is huge because you can put it on a flyer and just start pounding the damage in there. You can put it on Ayli and make her survive some stuff. I mean, you can put it on technically Shambling Vent and it will stay on him even when he ceases being a creature. I thought that was a bit of a weird rule. You can also just put it on Night Market Lookout so that you can, tap him without losing him. They may or may not block him. You can even put it on Serene Steward if you really wanted. A counter that can go anywhere is huge in this deck, and this is one of the cheapest, most effective combat creatures in the entire deck. Next up, and this is kind of, I'm on the fence about putting him in. He is a 2/3 for 3, which is why he ended up going in. I cut it to 3 though because he's legendary. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So he's a self-contained plus-minus. He gets amplified by Cliffhaven just like pretty much the rest of the deck. And he is a 2/3. Other than that, I mean, it depends what they're playing. He'd be the first thing that comes out to replace him, with a sideboard card. In the sideboard, probably just outright kill, just planeswalker kill and creature kill pretty much. Maybe a board wipe, maybe. I mean, you kind of don't want to do that because you'll probably lose, but I don't know. Now, I named the deck, of course, Triggered. Why? Is it because I'm so triggered right now? I can't handle the fact that Donald Trump won the election. Oh my God, my head's gonna explode because I'm such a liberal. No, I'm actually a reasonable person. I know that may come as a shock to some of you. I obviously called it Triggered because, well, it's your only reminder that you better remember the triggers. I would say the very first time I played with this deck online, because then, obviously it reminds you of the triggers, I would say I probably was surprised by about 30 to 40% of the triggers. I was like, oh, that's right, that's on the battlefield, and then that causes that, and oh, that's right, that is considered an individual life gain, and oh, that's right, lifelink triggers that, and yeah, it just bounces around. I mean, I almost called the deck Bouncy Ball. Unfortunately, I have a blue deck in the works that's probably going to be called Bouncy Ball. So definitely pay very close attention to what you are summoning, what it does, and every time anything happens with your life total or your opponent's life total, just take a minute to recheck everything on the field and see if you have a trigger that might go off. There's probably going to be like 5 triggers per turn just on your side of the battlefield. It is really nasty to try to run this deck. So yeah, that's the deck. I mean, pretty obvious what it does, but of course I always like showing off some gameplay footage, and I just recorded it, and let me say, the power level on both sides of the battlefield get over 9,000. This is like the most insane gameplay ever, so watch for that. I'll be uploading it right after this. And seriously, you guys, it is like the most out-of-control game I've seen lately. Holy crap. So overall, I would say this deck is very powerful long-term. It's kind of just one of those slow ramp kind of things. The only thing that really stalls out things is the Death Touchers, all one of them. Other than that, I mean, it just tends to lose to Giant Flyers in some cases. And, Metalwork Colossus on turn 4, Electrostatic Pommeler on turn 4. But honestly, those are like modern caliber decks in Standard. I mean, those types of decks really piss me off because research and development did not do their jobs to prevent stuff like that. Those just push out any kind of reasonable deck that takes like 5 or 6 turns to get going. And, I mean, that's what's ruining Modern right now, honestly. They have all this win on turn 4 garbage, and people always have to consider that when they build a deck. So it's suppressing all the other deck ideas, because if they can't stop or disrupt a deck, then they just lose on turn 4, simple as that. So now, unfortunately, that crept into Standard. That kind of sucks. So decks like this, which are just absolutely solid synergy, they just work, it doesn't matter because you're going to lose before you get anything on the field. So unfortunately, they really screwed that up, but with those couple exceptions, if nobody at your local gaming store, not a lot of people are playing like the Super Blitz win on turn 4 garbage, then you'll probably be able to get away with this and you'll probably win quite a few matches. This is not the most powerful deck I've built by any means, and it got just obliterated by cyborgs. I mean, the AI beat me like, 6-7 times in a row. I mean, if you've got like a 9/9 creature on turn 3 or 4, yeah, you're gonna win. That deck is out of control as well. I mean, so if you want like the dirt cheap version of like win on turn 4, cyborgs, definitely. Other than that, I mean, if you've got a little bit of a slower meta at your local gaming store, this is just a fun deck. I mean, yeah, it's very competitive. It will win. There are better decks out there. Like I always say, Gravity Bomb just crushes this. The funny thing is this deck might actually beat Gravity Bomb, like specifically, but power-wise, Gravity Bomb is better. So I don't know, I'd give this like a 6.5 out of 10, maybe, on the power scale. So it's competitive, but it's also fun. It's tricky. It's also dirt cheap. In the sideboard, I'd throw in maybe, 2 black removal spells, kill spells, whatever. Maybe Anguished Unmaking if you really wanted to be daring. If you got them, throw in Drana. I mean, they're not even that expensive now. I think they're like $3 or $4, and a 2/3 first striker that makes everything larger. You don't tend to swing with your whole line and then boost them with counters. It's not really how this deck works. But if you can get away with it, you're going to win pretty quickly. And sometimes she's just a flying attack deterrent. You can also start dropping counters on her with Serene, and that gets pretty funny. You could also throw in like an additional flyer or a ground dirt cheap death toucher. That'll shut people down pretty quick, especially the pummeler decks. I mean, okay, trample, but that's like a 4/4 combo. 4 pummelers for boost trample. It's not as likely to happen as people make it out to be. So yeah, in general, in the current meta, I would say that this stands a chance. So yeah, feel free to build it. It's like $30-ish. Oh, actually, those concealed courtyards are a fortune. So, hey, welcome to non-mono. Yay. So, I don't know, with those, I don't know, what, 50, 60 bucks, something like that? Honestly, the concealed courtyard's extremely important, but if you just replaced them with, like, the ones that come in tapped, whatever. Actually, I'd probably just split them. Just take out all 4 and put in plains and swamps. You really need your mana when you need it. So that pretty well summarizes this deck, and watch out for the gameplay uploading very shortly after this, and I'll see you guys next video.